Welcome back to DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast, and after a 3-week break from the action, we are finally back. This barren run at the start of the year of racing, 3-week break, is finally over until we get to Nashville in August. So hallelujah, thank you IndyCar calendar organisers for finally in the stupid break, but we are back to review the Grand Prix of Alabama, which was yet again won by Álex Palou. He's been the story of the season. 3 wins from the first 4 races in a truly Palou-esque drive. He took pole, which to be fair, he doesn't often do, but he led from the front, and after about turn 3, it looked like he was never going to be caught. He ran off into the distance to take a truly dominant victory, quite possibly the best in his IndyCar career, and he starts off this start to the season, which has been unfathomable, really. It's been an absolute masterclass. He's absolutely schooling the field right now, and I mean, just incredible, just absolutely incredible from Álex Palou. He's setting an incredibly high benchmark, and we're 4 rounds in, but the championship is already looking like it's done and dusted. Archie, your thoughts on Palou's spellbinding performance?
I mean, first of all, I hope at least those Indianapolis-based viewers like my brand new attire. I can't admit, to be honest, to being a basketball fan at all, but it's become a bit of a running joke, hasn't it, Dan? That I don't know. You're obviously a big Knicks fan, as he slots the hat on. But the Pacers seem to be, especially with the month of May, there's this thing always made of Pacers and races. And obviously the Indiana Pacers are kind of semi-named after the Indianapolis 500 pace car. So I just thought, with all the chat and all of the popularity of the Pacers in the IndyCar paddock, a bit of money left over for my birthday. So let's cop an Indiana Pacers cap. Make its debut on the podcast today. But yes, let's not get sidetracked. On to Álex.
Well, let's absolutely get sidetracked. You picked the wrong team. Scott McLaughlin is the only one in the IndyCar paddock who's doing this correctly. So, I mean, basketball viewers both know my beloved Knicks and Archie's sort of beloved Pacers are both in the conference semi-finals. Big win for the Pacers yesterday. So they started off their run very well. So Knicks go tonight. So, I mean, we're going to lose probably, but I've still got to rep them. This podcast for about 5 minutes. I'll take his hat off.
I think sort of beloved Pacers is a very good way to put it, because I know nothing about them other than has a bit of a link to IndyCar, and I quite like their badge. But yes, Álex Palou. Anyway, let's get on to that. And I mean, something that kept coming to my mind this weekend, because a lot of people keep talking about the fact that Álex Palou is making it boring, and to be honest, if the races are substandard, I don't put that down to Álex Palou. Yes, okay, he's dominating, and the absence of cautions, the first time we've had 3 successive races without a caution since 1986, which is a heck of a long time ago. But I mean, obviously the thing that's making the racing and has drastically changed the racing is the hybrid system. We'll get onto that a bit more, but I don't think Palou is the sole thing at least that's making this boring. And yeah, the absence of cautions is just allowing his dominance to show even more. That allowed him to build the 16-second winning margin on Sunday. So, but yeah, so something that keeps coming to my mind, and it's something that's been used kind of with relation to Scott Dixon in the past with his sponsors PNC Bank, the slogan "brilliantly boring." And I think because there is this perception from some that, you know, what Palou is doing is making things a little bit boring. I think obviously you've got to have a just unbelievable appreciation for what he's doing, but it almost is brilliantly boring in a way, because he's doing it in such a dominant fashion that I mean, especially at Barber, there was just no fight for the win. I mean, the only time he didn't lead was pit cycles. I mean, he had a bit of pressure from Scott McLaughlin early on, and those two were the only alternate.
2 corners.
yeah, for 2 corners, and those two were the only 2 starting on the. They were the front row there, and the only 2 starting on the alternate tyres inside the top 9. It was really a red race, and the rest were trying to get the primaries gone early on. But Palou on the same set of tyres as McLaughlin, a used set of alternates, it must be said, absolutely destroyed McLaughlin in the first stint. I mean, he got into the pit stops with I can't remember exactly what the lead was, but I think it was certainly somewhere in the range between 5 and 10 seconds, which was pretty unbelievable. And then comes out in the second stint on the less favoured primaries, you've got Colton Herta chasing down on the alternates. But Palou is still the quickest driver on the track. I mean, I think what we're seeing this year is that this guy is getting better. He's still getting better. And I know there was a bit of a drop-off last year, but this is seriously unprecedented. And I'll go back to something I kept saying back after Thermal, after his last victory 6 weeks ago, but obviously only 2 races ago. He's bringing an air of inevitability to a series that is so renowned for its unpredictability. And I think that alone is just so impressive. And yeah, okay, while it might be tedious having the same winner, something that we're not used to in IndyCar, you've just got to appreciate that what we're seeing is pretty historic. And yeah, got that primary stint out of the way, obliterated everyone again, and just drew out the gap. And I mean, there was a nice bit of joking in the post-race press conference between Marshall Pruitt and Palou, and Pruitt was basically just trying to wind him up a little bit, and Palou was just saying, no, it's not boring, it's a great story, it's not boring, it's a great story. And yeah, okay, some people might believe it's boring, but it is a bloody good story, this. I mean, it's special what we're seeing.
Look, I'm not going to say I'm an IndyCar expert, but one sort of assessment I think I've made is the hybrid really suits Palou. His driving style has always been quite smooth, quite smooth is the main word, but it's not disjointed. Like someone like Herta or O'Ward are known for soaring at the wheel, being very aggressive in their cars, whilst Palou's the polar opposite. And we know the hybrid and the added weight of that has made the cars more difficult to drive, and you have to drive more to that style. And I think that really has suited Álex Palou, which is partially why his advantage is even more shown. While someone like Pato O'Ward inside the equation has found the hybrids really difficult to drive, hence why his performance has been patchy, because it doesn't suit his driving style. And obviously others will adapt to that, but I think that's partially why maybe Palou is such a short-term advantage. But that's definitely not to take away from what he's achieving, because even with that, to win a race by 15 seconds, whatever it was, is quite unprecedented. And I saw the statistic going around. I think since 2021, there's been 5 races on a road and street course won by over 10 seconds. All of them have been Palou. I don't know what I'm saying. All of them have been Palou in that time, which just says a lot about him more than anything else. He is on his day. He is absolutely ruthless, and he won't settle for a comfortable victory. He is only going for dominant victories.
I think just latching off your point about the hybrid, Barry Wanzer came into press after the race while Palou was wrapping up his victory celebrations, and he did say that understanding the hybrid is what he believes is a key part of this start to Palou's season, because obviously we've seen ruthless seasons from him. Obviously 22 was kind of record breaking, and that was something we haven't really
23.
seen. But 23, that's it. 22 is the disaster one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've obviously seen that as kind of the record breaking, took the 5 victories, was just unstoppable. But this has taken it to a new level. I mean, he is 60 points clear at the front of the championship after 4 races. He could sit out a race already, and we're 4 rounds into the season. And in second place is Christian Lundgaard, who's got 3 podiums in succession. It's not like everyone else it's not like there's no other driver who's performed even close to his level. Well, Lundgaard's not performed close to his level, but he's also been on the podium 3 times in 4 races, which in any other season might be enough to lead the championship this early on. So for Palou to have three wins and after 4 races, his worst result still to be second, astonishing. But I mean, Palou described the weekend as perfect. And I know Palou can be a bit self-critical at times. You know, he often plays down how good things are, and I like his approach. He spoke a lot yesterday about how, you know what, it's nice to have this buffer. You know, it doesn't mean anything because there's 13 races left. It does mean something because he's got this advantage, but he's not going to get complacent. And he said he doesn't look towards the championship really. He just goes race by race, enjoys the challenge of every new weekend, and he'll only look at the championship when it gets to a stage where, okay, yeah, I need to finish top 10 to wrap it up, or this, that, and the other. But he did concede that this weekend, in his eyes, was perfect. I mean, he's only got 7 poles. This was only his 7th pole position, actually. I guess, you know, he's shown so far this season that raw speed is being coupled with this formidable sort of consistency we see from him. He's already led 1,000 laps in IndyCar. He led, I think it was 81 of the 90 at Barber. So he's already crossed that mark. 14 wins in 4 seasons plus 4 races is pretty astonishing. That's getting towards being an entire season's worth of wins.
But he's already won more races this year. He did the whole of last year.
Yeah, which is amazing, isn't it? It's amazing to think about.
Which is crazy. And I mean, we've said about how good Palou is on 12 other episodes on this podcast. So we don't really need to blow his trumpet again, because everyone appreciates what he's doing is unprecedented, and what he's doing is spellbinding. It must be so deflating for the opposition. I know Scott McLaughlin said he wasn't, but it must be so deflating for the likes of Christian Lundgaard would be a great example, who is performing so brilliantly at McLaren. He's set the benchmark so high in that team, and he's really impressed. And yet he still can't lay a glove on Álex Palou. And it's the same applies Scott McLaughlin, who this Barber's been his track, and he's just nowhere near Palou. I think the same applies to people like Colton Herta, Pato Award. I know it sounds crazy, but you could even say Scott Dixon. The same applies to with how Palou is performing, and the fact there is just this gap. And it's the fact that all 3 of his wins, so you could say they've all come in rather different ways, because Barber was dominating from the pole. Thermal was sort of a late race charge to build that gap. And then St. Petersburg was executing the strategy perfectly. He's won 3 races in 3 different ways, and yet nobody could challenge him.
Yeah, I think this was certainly an example of controlling from the front. And I think the way I'd kind of described St. Pete and Thermal was kind of like controlling from being in the ballpark of the lead, and then obviously just seizing when it mattered. It was managed perfectly, calculated perfectly, whereas this was just, it was an utter beatdown. And I think you've got to credit the team as well, because this is, I mean, obviously it's the driver that executes like nobody else we've really ever seen. But the team in our time. Let's put that. Okay. But I mean, they are pit stops that look seamless. Strategy is never wrong. They always make the right decision. They always do things at the right time. And then just having the driver that can execute and be so much quicker than anybody else at all times. I mean, I think I joked during the race, like, they may as well like just make a 3rd compound just for Palou that's harder, because he'll probably still be quicker than everyone. That was how it felt yesterday. And he was proud of this weekend. You could tell. He said that this was probably his best weekend, not only in IndyCar in his career. It's been his best start to the season, not only in IndyCar in his career, even including go-karts. So I think that says all you need to know, really. This has been incredible. It is incredible what we're watching at the moment.
I think we'll leave it there for Palou, because I think we could go on about his performances until the end of time. And we've got 26 other drivers who probably are worth a mention as well. And I think Christian Lundgaard is one who's, once again, really setting a benchmark at McLaren. And, you know, there was always going to be question marks when he came in. And I said last year that I think he'd match O'Ward in road street courses. He's actually quite comfortably beating O'Ward pretty much week in, week out at the minute. And a 3rd consecutive podium for the team. And now it's not really a surprise he's on the podium. It's kind of crazy that both Palou and Lundgaard have been on the podium 3 races in a row. They've just got a different psychic every time. But his start to the season has been really impressive. Didn't make the Fast 6, which was a slight surprise, but once again, his racecraft is absolutely superb. He made some really great overtakes on O'Ward. In fairness, O'Ward was on the cold tyres, but it's a great move into turn 5. Made a fantastic move on McLaughlin into the final corner as well. One of those daring late passes. And he continues to really impress. It's been said a few times, Lundgaard would be the standout driver of 2025 if Álex Palou wasn't there. So I feel somewhat bad for him, because he's been so superb. He's exceeded all the expectations already, and he's not the headline story every week.
I mean, as I said, like any other season, or at least certainly some seasons gone by, he would probably be leading the championship with 3 successive podiums, 3 podiums in 4 races, all on the trot for a new team, new engine manufacturer. It's been an incredible adjustment. I think people really need to kind of just take a moment to reflect on how impressive that is. Like, it's seriously impressive, and it's a shame for him, obviously, that Palou is stealing all the limelight. I mean, yeah, obviously it just shows what a job Palou is doing. That a driver can be on the podium in 3 successive races, and still Palou could sit out a race and they would not catch him. I mean, it's outrageous. And Lundgaard is now the only other driver with along with Palou that's actually been in the top 10 even in every race. Kirkwood, Dixon, and Rosenqvist all finished outside the top 10, and they were the only others with that record. But I think it's just his racecraft is stunning. I know obviously he had the front row at Thermal, but we've seen Long Beach and obviously now Barber, where it's been incredibly tough to pass. He's been making it work. Like he was the only driver really through the field that stood out to me that was actually making legitimate passes. I mean, I think there was one sequence that seemed pretty, I don't know, it seemed pretty important to me, was that he made a big lunge on Pato O'Ward to pass him after his second pit stop. And that just felt like something, I don't know, it just felt like it encapsulated this change in dynamic at Aaron McLaren, where Pato O'Ward's never been beaten by a teammate. I think the best a teammate has finished is 8th in points, like Rosenqvist, I believe, in 22. He's being challenged properly here, and he's been beaten. And Lundgaard making that lunge on Pato, he's willing to upset the apple cart. He's not settling for this being Pato's team. And I'm not saying it formally was Pato's team or Pato was the lead driver or anything, because that's not really how things work. But he was the guy. He was the guy. And Lundgaard already after 4 races.
Poster boy, weren't he?
Oh, absolutely. But Lundgaard already after 4 races he's outshining him. And I guess Pato O'Ward on the flip side, I mean, he must be pretty peeved by this. Like, he can't be happy with this.
I mean, he said a few times that he really does not like the hybrid, because he said it a few times. He's had to completely change his driving style to adapt to the hybrid, and I think we can still see the repercussions of that, because he doesn't really seem to have any sort of consistency race to race at the minute. And Lundgaard's always been a strong road course racer, and to be fair, I don't think O'Ward's really ever has been really strong on road street courses. His speciality is still the ovals. But I mean, to be fair, Pato had a pretty decent weekend, I think. Finishing 6th isn't too bad, actually, and he was quite close to power at times as well. So it wasn't a disastrous weekend for Pato. It's just he doesn't really seem to have the pace of Lundgaard. Long Beach, okay, you can maybe excuse the strategy. St. Petersburg, maybe you could blame a bad qualifying for him, but this weekend seemed where they're most unparalleled. This isn't a bad track for Pato historically, unlike Long Beach. And yeah, Lundgaard seemed to have the upper hand on him. I think IMS road course will be interesting, because this is a good track for both of them. IMS will be telling. Month of May is going to be really telling for Pato. I think I think there's a lot of drivers now. The 500 really makes or breaks their season, because a championship run for the people such as Lundgaard and people such as Pato, a championship run already seems incredibly far-fetched. So now you have to look at winning a 500 to really save your season. So there's actually a lot riding on it now.
So for me with Pato, it comes down to confidence. And I keep going back to what he said at Thermal after qualifying, that I mean, it's well known. He's a guy that loves the car on the ragged edge, and he can throw it around. And he used to have utmost confidence, and he knew where the line was, that he could throw it around but extract maximum pace, not overstep the mark. But now in the hybrid, he just can't do the same thing. I think more than anybody in the field, because he had such a drastic driving style anyway, he's had to have the most drastic change in driving style. He's had to relearn the car more than anybody else, I think. He thought he'd cracked it at Thermal when he got that pole and felt like he'd finally found what worked for him, which he hadn't really had since Mid-Ohio. But then he just seems to have lost that again.
To be fair, I mean, it was actually quite a decent weekend.
Yeah.
He just didn't have the pace of Lundgaard. But in fairness, Lundgaard has also run well here previously. So
yes, I think, we probably are overreacting a little bit, aren't we? But he had a crash in second practice. That was maybe more to attribute to, the track conditions were a bit mixed. It was a bit slick after a bit of rain.
We've had a few times where crashes have looked really dramatic this season. They turn out to be not dramatic at all. I mean, I love the fact he just reversed out, and all they needed to do was replace the front wing.
It looked like a big hit, because they actually showed it live, and he was just hurtling towards the barriers because he couldn't get any purchase on the kind of wet grass. And it looked like that was a front of the car ruined, but no, gets kind of dragged out and drives it back to the pits. Yeah, with damage, but just the front wing a little bit of jar.
It's what I love about Indy cars. It's like, I said this to you, Formula One cars will make the slightest bit of contact. You'll have carbon fibre all over the track and someone will get a puncture because of that carbon fibre. Indy cars will go 4 feet into a barrier and all they need is a front wing change. Brilliant.
Amazing.
But, as I said to you, there's still work to do because Ericsson almost flipped and couldn't get going. So IndyCar, you've still got work to do. We're not quite indestructible yet.
But yeah, just to kind of close on O'Ward, we probably are kind of overreacting a little bit. He's still fourth in points, to be fair, albeit he is 28 behind Lundgaard. Again, that can swing in a race.
And he's got a stretch of overs coming up. 500, Gateway, Iowa. He's going to claw that back.
Of course. But he is also now, how many behind Palou?
98. No, 88.
Which is incredible. I mean, again, that's more Palou than anyone. But yeah, I think the tail with O'Ward and where the concern comes from is just the fact that he's kind of just completely obliterated all of his teammates more or less in the past. And to be fair, I think obviously he's struggling with the hybrid, but it also comes down to the fact that I actually think Christian Lundgaard is proving himself to be a prodigious talent and almost certain future IndyCar champion.
I mean, we'll round off Harry McLaren whilst we're here. I mean, we've sort of just jumped the order, but I think it's worth briefly touching on Nolan Seeger, who had his best IndyCar weekend to date.
Definitely.
First of a fast six, outqualified both Lundgaard and O'Ward. Race-wise, both of them got the upper hand of Seagull in the opening stint. But finished ninth in the end, which I think is his joint best career result. I believe.
I think he finished seventh at Gateway last year, but that was quite a circumstantial thing.
That is true. But yeah, that race is basically him avoiding the chaos. But his best road street course finish, that's for sure. And Seagull definitely has made progress this year. St. Petersburg was quite good until obviously the opening lap crash, which wasn't really his fault. Long Beach, he was obviously quite unwell. And look, there is still a lot of work for him to do to get on the level of Lundgaard and O'Ward, but out-qualifying both of them on raw pace will probably give him quite a bit of confidence. So an all-round good weekend from Nolan Seagull.
Yeah, I think he's kind of doing the job he has to. And obviously, as you say, kind of race-wise, he's had a few things snatch him from contention. But it feels like he's quite reliably making the Fast 12 now. Which again shows he's not a million miles off his teammates. Obviously, they have a lot more experience than him, so it's natural that over the course of a race he probably does drop a little bit. But I think it was also cool actually in the race. He got his elbows out early on and held his teammates behind for a little bit. Pretty clean fighting, and he did a good job to just stay up there in the top 10. You saw the likes of, Kiffin Simpson started up in the top 12, as did Louis Foster, and both of them, for whatever reason, dropped down the order. Whereas Seagull, in that kind of category of young driver, managed to stay up there, held his own. I think that was a really good weekend. I'm really impressed with that.
A lot of the field have really quiet days. I mean, Scott McLaughlin finished third, qualified second, but pretty quiet day. There's not really much to note from his weekend. He was also the double defending Barber winner. He finished third. I mean, that was probably the best he could finish. I mean, in the press conference, McLaughlin was like, no, I was happy with third, but he did seem a bit deflated, it felt. He didn't seem very cheerful about his results. And he's got the upper hand of both his teammates quite comfortably still, like I feel like he has done all season long. But it's just, I feel Palou's a bit of the most effective factor, because we both came into this year thinking McLaughlin and Palou would be the title fight. And obviously we know what's happened now. So it wasn't a bad weekend. It's just, I think, frustrating for him that Palou's being so good.
I've got to think that opening stint will have been a bit demoralising. Again, I can't remember the exact gap. I think it was the best part of 10 seconds after that opening stint on the same starting strategy that Palou had pulled on McLaughlin. I think, that's got to be a bit painful. I think it probably just speaks to the fact that Penske is struggling. Not struggling, but by their standards, this has not been a great start to the season. Obviously, we touched on last week that each of their drivers had a minimum points finish. Not really their fault as such, but it was a rocky start to the season, but they just hadn't been qualifying well, hadn't really had the race results. Obviously, Newgarden and St. Pete had been the only podium. But no, I think McLaughlin has been the standout guy again. He's been the only guy to make the Fast Six. Well, he's made the Fast Six 3 times. The rest of his teammates, Newgarden hasn't powered it for the first time at Barber. And yeah, he obviously kind of continued that form he's shown at Barber McLaughlin. But I just think, again, maybe they've not nailed the hybrid like other teams have, or at least like Palou and the 10 crew have. Yeah, it probably is a bit deflating, I think, as you say, to just see Palou running away as he did, especially when McLaughlin comes into the season such a co-favourite, one of the favourites.
Yeah, let's finish off on Penske, because I actually thought it was another good weekend for Will Power. He's actually picked up quite a few good weekends, and there's this whole storyline of Power versus Malukas for the Penske seat in 2026. I think you're looking now, and it's like, well, it's got to be Power, because his Sundays have actually been pretty good recently, and he qualified fourth, finished fifth in the end, which not too bad of a day. But Power's record at Barber is insane. In 15 visits, this was his 11th top five. That is a crazy record. Really strong track with Power. And yeah, I mean, I said it. This whole seat, him versus Malukas, I mean, every single race, he's just swerves it more in his direction, which was really needed after that incident in St. Petersburg. So again, Power's gone around his business, I feel like, quite quietly this year. He's been picking up top 10s quite regularly, and it's his first time made the Fast Six of the season, as you said. And yeah, a decent weekend for Power. Yeah, he's not shown too much in terms of flashy moments, but he's been reliable, is the word I use.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't only the first time he'd made the Fast Six, it was also the first time he made the Fast 12 all season. And I think kind of came into this weekend thinking with Power, like, maybe if he had qualified a bit better in the earlier rounds, he could have been on the podium, could have picked up podiums. If he'd been in the Fast Six, he kind of had shown the race pace, it felt like, to, obviously cut through the field as he had in quite a few of those races, obviously Thermal and then Long Beach as well, gaining, I think Long Beach was 8 positions and Thermal was like 15 odd, I think, which was pretty impressive. But he put himself in the position this time, obviously starting fourth. He still didn't quite seem to have McLaughlin's pace, obviously, in qualifying, and then kind of proved the same in the race. I know there was a bit of an animated moment in the on the radio during the race when he was kind of lamenting his team for telling him to fuel save when he felt he could have maybe didn't quite have to. I think he felt he could have maybe attacked McLaughlin at one point. Ended up actually finishing 10 odd seconds behind McLaughlin. But yeah, I think it kind of just shows that Penske are lacking that bit, because he was in the position, obviously starting inside the top 4, but couldn't push on for that podium, couldn't push on to contend anywhere near to Palou. Not that, I mean, nobody's contending anywhere near Palou, are they? But that's the thing. Like, you look and think Penske are really lacking, but they've still got, McLaughlin finished 3rd, Power 5th. So relative to everyone else in the field, they're pretty much right up at the top. But just because Palou is so dominant, it's very hard to get a read.
I would say Newgarden has still been. It was a bit of another anonymous weekend for Newgarden. It feels like we're just having too many of them, where he's just doesn't seem to have the pace compared to his 2 teammates, and he's just a little bit nowhere. Started 9th, finished 10th, which isn't too bad. But again, this has been a good track for Newgarden. I mean, not in recent years, in fairness. It's been a bit of a struggle bus for him in recent years. This is one of his better results, actually. But it's just, again, every year we come with this new hope, this new reset, this new change, and he seems quite a bit off his 2 teammates at the minute. It's just a bit strange, because it's not the Newgarden we've really known for a while, and he just continues to be a bit on the struggle bus. 4 rounds in, 11th in the standings. We know he could do better.
Yeah, I mean, this was his best qualifying, and that's 9th inside the opening 4 rounds. Again, you expect better from Newgarden. If you look at the Penske in points, McLaughlin is 5th, obviously. Still 91 points off Palou.
We just stopped mentioning this gap on the podcast.
Power's still down in 9th, to be fair. But again, it gets really tight, kind of O'Ward in 4th back. It's pretty tight, actually. McLaughlin on 105. Power's then 4 positions low, but on 93. Newgarden 15 back then. He's in 11th. But, I mean, Newgarden's got over half of Palou's points. I mean, it feels like the same story as the last 2 years.
Can I say something to cheer us all a little bit up?
Go on.
In 2012, Will Power won 3 of the first 4 races and didn't win the title. So it's not over. I mean, I looked at this a minute ago. He had a 45-point lead exiting round 4 in Sao Paulo. So the championship is not over. Ryan Hunter-Reay did it in 2012 when Will Power won 3 of the first 4. Let's keep our spirits high. I mean, Hunter Ray was, well, this demotivated me a little bit because he was 59 points behind Power at that stage. So there's still a chance for Lundgaard here, but it's not over. It's not over. Let's cheer us up on this podcast. We're being so doom and gloom today.
But no, I think just what I was going to say actually is this feels very much like Newgarden's kind of how he's headed into May the last couple of years, really in need of a big result, and he's just primed to win the Indy 500 again, right? I mean, this feels like such an unbelievable chance for this historic first-time three-peat Indy 500. I mean, we'll obviously preview that a lot more over the next couple of weeks, but yeah, just kind of hiding in the shadows, been pretty much nowhere all season apart from that third place at St. Pete, and heads into the 500, and yeah, let's see.
Right, it's the moment the listeners have all been craving for. It's about time we touched on Rinus VeeKay.
I can't believe it's taken this long.
I know, we've got a bit sidetracked stuff. I feel like we're going quite well as well, so we might have to speed through after Rinus VeeKay, but...
No, we won't.
No, I said beyond Rinus VeeKay.
Oh, okay. I thought you said speed through Rinus VeeKay.
No. Obviously, a really incredible performance from Rinus VeeKay, finishing fourth in a Dale Coyne racing car after finishing... after starting in fifth place, and... just an incredible performance. There's nothing more to say about it. I mean, it's a shame below one because otherwise VeeKay would be the talk of the town if Palou didn't win once again. But sensational. I mean, it's unfathomable saying that they'd get fourth after the situation they were in last year. And yeah, it's great for VeeKay because he was so close to being out of a seat, and now he's back in the shop window again. So anyway, listeners don't want to hear my thoughts because I'm not the Rinus VeeKay enjoyer on this show. So.
I will make sure he gets the limelight. I mean, first of all, going back to last week's episode, I had some prediction, did I not? Was it just that he'd make the Fast 12?
Maybe, yeah. I can't remember, to be honest.
I mean, even I didn't think that. I mean, they had it in them to make the Fast 6 and him to qualify fifth. I mean, what was the team's best qualifying result last year? We've probably been over this. It's in the teens, isn't it?
Definitely. I've got the spreadsheet somewhere, but...
but yeah, I mean, to have qualified fifth, but then you kind of think, okay, Dale Coyne Racing, this is probably IndyCar's smallest team. Them, Lundgaard Racing, kind of in that bracket. And nope, he holds his own. After that second pit cycle, he's up in fourth. And the manner in which he kind of just held off a number of cars, and these are like serious cars as well, Will Power, Pato Ward, on cold tyres, the defence was pretty remarkable. Racecraft wise, that was pretty stunning, I thought. And even on his final stop, he had an issue with the wheel nut falling off, coming loose. They had to reach for the spare, but credit to kind of the job that he did in that previous stint. He managed to stay fourth. And I mean, in that final stint, and even the final two stints, really, he had the pace on the Penske cars. I mean, again, after that final stop, he held off Will Power, who was harrying him, putting so much pressure on him. It was pretty ridiculous defensive driving. And I think something that I noted from that final stint, there was a point where he passed the 21 of Christian Rasmussen, obviously the car that he was booted out of at Ed Carpenter Racing, for fourth, with Rasmussen still yet to make his final pit stop. The guy who was rejected by his Ed Carpenter Racing team for whatever reason that doesn't really make much sense to anyone. I mean, obviously they felt maybe it was the end of the cycle. I think for VeeKay, it's proven beneficial. I mean, we've spoken a lot about wanting to see him go to another team where
Connor Daly said it when he was with us.
Exactly, where you can get just more of a read rather than him being stuck in the same environment for 5 years. Maybe it had gone a bit stagnant. I know I say a moment ago, you don't know why they've got rid of him, but yeah, maybe it had got a bit stagnant. It was the longest tenured driver at that team, what have you. But I mean, what a loss
apart from Ed.
Apart from Ed, of course. But I mean, what a loss for them, because this guy, I think this was, he said, other than his win on the IMS road course, this was probably the best driver of his career. And I think this was a serious statement drive. I think they said on the broadcast that drive alone is probably something that's going to get teams looking for next year. And what I've been preaching, that this guy's the real deal.
I think it's worth we briefly touch on Andretti, because we spoke about this last week. Andretti's record here is pretty abysmal. Colton Herta sort of turned it around in qualified third. And I know you spoke to him pre-weekend about this, which we'll play in a minute. And looked really good for Herta until he stalled in the pits, which was really a real letdown. But aside from Herta, who ended up finishing 7th, which is one of his better results at Barber, Kirkwood, absolutely nowhere. Ericsson, top practice, crashes in second practice, and he ends up finishing 20th. I know he had, after qualifying 23rd, I know he did have some front wing damage, but I mean, we saw Palou finish second in Toronto with a front wing at an angle of an airplane. So it's just strange that they're just really not strong here. But I think Ericsson is one you have to really be disappointed in, because he just looks a shadow of the Ericsson that was at Ganassi. And this season again was a whole, he's got this mental coach who's going to turn it around, and we haven't, really seen that.
I don't want to come down too harshly on Andretti, just for the fact, obviously, we saw them win Long Beach. They're the only team that have taken that challenge to Palou this season, really. Obviously on Kirkwood's side. But it seems like they come out of the blocks really quickly every weekend in practice. And then somehow everyone just catches them up and they don't seem to really kick on, because they look the fastest team again in practice. But once again, as was the case, I feel like in St. Pete, I don't recall thermal too well, but they just didn't kick on. They didn't execute. And I think this is a thing. Colton Herta, he's up there really, in that bracket behind Palou, probably with Lundgaard in terms of pace and performance this season. But execution-wise, on a team-wide level, it just seems to be letting them down again. I think we obviously credited what we saw on the 27 at Long Beach. That was like what we see from the 10 car in Palou, but on Herta's side, there just seems to be stuff going wrong still constantly, whether in their control, out of their control. They have a lot of misfortune. He must be ruining the amount of bad luck that he has. But this was on track to be a good weekend for him. He was looking like he could finish second at one point. If you take away the time lost from stalling in the pits, he probably would have finished. He was definitely going to finish in the top 5. I think, to be fair, the fact that he finished 7th in the end is actually
not bad, is it?
Pretty decent recovery, given the circumstances. Again, it's kind of you saying, okay, Herta's maximised, but that's given the circumstances. He hadn't qualified any better than 9th at Barber. His best race finish was 8th. This is his best race finish, and qualifying 3rd was actually a really, really good result for him at his weakest track. But yeah, I don't know what more to say on them. Let's just play on what he said actually on Friday. So this was about basically Colton talking about why he has, in his words, sucked at Barber, and also kind of reflecting on the first 3 races, which kind of still feels like an applicable statement after the Barber weekend. I think they said on the broadcast that you haven't actually qualified any higher than 9th at Barber. So is there anything in particular you feel has maybe held you back or the team back in recent years?
I think there are some tendencies that we have gained through the past weekends that are negative, or my reads on things have been negative. This is my worst track by far for qualifying, and really racing, but I think the racing part's because we qualify bad. I think we always race really well here. It's just hard to make up positions when you start at the back here. So qualifying, I've sucked here. This is the only track that I've gone to that I've not made a fast 6. So love to change that. Who knows what will happen? I haven't driven here in the wet in a long time. So see how that plays a role.
And I'm just wondering as well how you reflect on your start to the season, because we've obviously seen Álex build a massive gap at the front of the championship. So are you happy with your first 3 races or not so much?
Yes and no. I think there's some pretty major things, like if we could go back, we would have changed. But, for the most part, I think we're not making huge mistakes. There's been some things here and there from myself and the team on the first few weekends that have not been great, and have kind of put us in this position. But if you look at it, like 2nd through 15th or whatever, it's pretty close. So yeah, I'm happy with how it's going. There's always stuff that you can improve on, but I think we've had the right idea for a lot of.
One more thing on Ericsson. He's had 2 finishes outside the top 20 this year and only 1 top 10, but he's still 13th in the standings, which was rather bizarre. And it shows the inconsistency that's been across the field so far this season. But it's top practice, and then bit of a clumsy crash. And it just doesn't seem like the Ericsson that we saw at Ganassi. It hasn't clicked for him, and it still isn't clicking for him at Andretti.
Yeah, that's nuts that he's still 13th in the standings, actually. It really does speak to kind of just how, I don't know, just all over the place so many different drivers and teams have been so far this season. Sorry to our good friend of the podcast, James Scott, but he's having a bit of a disaster, because he comes into the season talking of his kind of revamped approach, really working hard in the off season, whether that's, you know, simulator time, mentality wise, and he put in so much hard work, and he clearly had put in so much hard work, and I kind of feel sorry for him that it's still not clicking. But yeah, you felt like, okay, he's tops opening practice, he's going to have a good weekend. This is it. This is his breakthrough weekend for Andretti. But it was a wild moment that he had in second practice. The rain kind of came down late in that practice session. I mean, the rain didn't impact as we kind of thought it would. There was kind of anticipation for a really wet qualifying, and kind of all the storms came the night before and the night after heading into race day. But it was a bit of a mad moment. I mean, heading downhill, did he take too much risk? Did he push too hard in the conditions where he didn't really need to? But he kind of, just slid down the grass, spit through the gravel. And almost, it was bizarre. He so nearly flipped. And maybe we've got the hybrid weight to thank for the fact that he didn't actually flip in the end. But it was the actual impact of the barrier in the end wasn't that big. But the heavy kind of dig and hit into the ground meant that actually caused the most damage to the car, whether the floor and also the suspension as well. So yeah, maybe that was a case of over pushing, taking too much risk. That just set him out of kills. The qualifying was awful. No two ways about it. I think he was second last in his group. And then by the start of the race, he was running dead last. Him and Scott Dixon were the bottom two in the race, and somehow ended up with a wounded front wing by the end of the race. But yeah, just not. It's so far away from what he showed at Ganassi, and it felt like we were starting to maybe get a bit of a return to that form. I know, I think he hadn't qualified outside the top 7 until.
He didn't have a session outside the top 7 until midway through Long Beach,
I think pretty much until the race at Long Beach. He hadn't qualified outside the top. He hadn't finished the session, yeah. 7. But since then, it's just gone a bit. I mean, actually, to be fair, no thermal.
We'll ignore that statistic. Something about being in the top 7 somewhere.
He was in the top 7 every session for a while, and that was kind of like, okay, this is quiet, getting on with his business, getting results. Ericsson that we've seen at Ganassi, and that's just kind of rapidly disappeared again.
Right, I think it's about time we run through the running order, as we've done this a bit more jumbled than we definitely usually do. It's been a bit of a weird one this week, but we've got through most of what we're going to talk about. Palou, Lundgaard, McLaughlin was a podium ahead of VeeKay and Power, your top 5. O'Ward, Herta, Rossi, Siegel, and Newgarden in your top 10. Good
drive from Rossi. He had a phenomenal start. That was kind of where he made up all his ground. 15th, He started. He was pretty much P8 all day, it feels like.
11th was Kirkwood, 12th was Dixon, who came up from 26th after a pretty poor qualifying where he made a mistake and went off at turn 8, which was unlike him.
Yeah, sorry to interject again. It probably is worth touching on his start to the season, because, I mean, where is he in points? He is still 7th in points, but it feels like he's had a really bad start to the season, Scott Dixon. I mean, obviously St. Pete probably could have won that race if it wasn't for his radio issues, and since then he's kind of just been...
And he's only nowhere. 1 point off 5th.
Yeah, and that's mad. But he made a mistake in qualifying, went off in the gravel. That's what kind of saw him start so far down. And the race, I mean, to be fair, it was a good race. That is a good performance in the race to make up the ground that he did from 26th. But been a rocky start to the season. And that he's still 7th shows what an insane start to the season it's been.
13th was Felix Rosenqvist. I was a bit disappointed actually about my Shank Racing this weekend, because they've made a good start to the season, but it seems a bit off the pace this weekend. But this was Felix 100th IndyCar race this weekend, which is a pretty big milestone. And to celebrate the occasion, we spoke to him pre-weekend about that milestone, as well as a bit of recapping the open test and a bit about the Firestone tyres, which we spoke about the other week. So here's Felix's thoughts on all those topics. Thanks, Dave. Hi, Felix. Just following up a little bit on what you said about the hybrid. When you're running in the pack, did you sort of feel a significant difference? If you're sort of the fifth car down the pack, how easy do you think it will be to pass? And do you think the boost will make any difference to that at all?
Yeah, good question. I think that's what we all try to figure out. I was kind of torn between, the weight of the hybrid obviously makes it harder. It's not like it's just more oversteer, because obviously the weight is in the back of the car, but it just feels like there's something pushing on the car, and you just have a little bit less margin, and you can't flirt with the edge as much as you could do in the past, which I think leads to more mistakes, which makes the racing better. That was kind of my feeling when I was in the pack, that it was kind of hard to just pass someone on pace, but there was a lot of mistakes going on, like people pushing wide on the exits and stuff, and you could just capitalize on that. And then with the actual usage of the hybrid, I think that's actually a bigger thing, where if you're really smart, you can definitely have that play in your advantage, how you regen and deploy, because it takes quite a long time to regen up. That was something that struck me, that I kind of picture it as being like this. You can just charge your battery in like an instant, but it takes quite a long time, especially the speed you're traveling. You're passing a lot of football fields before you go from 0 to 100 charge. So that was something that I wasn't really prepared for, but it's a fun game, to be honest. I thought it was pretty interesting, and also the way electric power works. You have so much torque, so it actually does more than you would think. I think like the push to pass, this is almost comparable to that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. We'll see how it plays out. I think for the leader, it'll be tough because he will have a tough time recharging because he's just flat out. So it'll probably be way more passing at the front, I say.
Okay, cool. And as Dave said, this weekend obviously marks number 100 for you in your IndyCar career. So I guess when you started off in 2019, did you sort of expect to reach number 100, do 7 seasons, and still be fighting at the front?
Yes and no. It's a pretty big number, and time just seems to fly by. I don't think at the time I would ever get this old. It's 7 years, but it's cool. It's a special series in that way. I've done some other series for a long time, and this one just seems to keep you on your toes all the time. You just keep learning and keep digging, and in a way you always feel like a rookie because it's kind of hard to just rely on your experience. I think Indy is one of the places you do, but for other tracks, you just like have to kind of go clean sheet into every weekend and adapt. And there's always a different tire or a different this and that. So which makes me, I think it's impressive the guys have made it really long in the series, like 10 plus years. It's definitely tough to compete with the young guns coming into the series and all the challenges that the series throws at you every weekend. So in that sense, I feel proud about it. But I'm also planning to stay for another 100.
Maybe. And very briefly on tyres, obviously sort of St. Petersburg and Long Beach in particular, Firestone brought 2 very different compounds. Obviously the alternate kind of fell off quite quickly. It wasn't very good race tyre, which has obviously been a bit of a change this year. So do you sort of prefer it where the tyres were sort of had a longer window and they were a bit closer? Do you sort of like the differences we've got this season?
I mean, personally, I think it's different from a competitor to a fan point of view. I think the fans normally prefer when it's chaotic and unpredictable. I think from a competitor standpoint, I like when it's more like even, I guess. Like it is not really like if you start on a red or start on a black, it's kind of the same. I think that's nice because the quickest guy will end up winning anyways. But yeah, I think it's kind of ended up like that anyways this year because the way the races have played out, it hasn't really mattered that much which one you start on. I think St. Pete was a bit of a clear winner starting on the red, but apart from that, it's just kind of been green racing and anyone can really win it, which I think is cool. I know people complain about it and they think it's boring, but I think every now and then it's kind of cool with just a green race and just see who beats the line quickest.
All right, Felix, that was really insightful. Best of luck for the weekend. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
And 13th place, obviously, 13th place predicted tournament. None of us guessed Rosenqvist, so the dry spell continues. Who did you guess? I guessed Rahal, I think.
I think I said O'Ward.
Yes, you did. So I was one off actually of Graham because he finished 14th.
Not bad shot.
So I'm a bit annoyed about that. But I mean, it means nothing. So it doesn't matter if I pick Palou. It still means to get 0 points. But Rahal was 14th ahead of Rasmussen, David Malukas, and I mean, we touch on this every week, but AJ thought his start to the season has been horrendous. We came into this year saying they've got this super lineup. They relocated all their resources to Indianapolis. They had such a great year last year, and it's only going to get better this year. They lie 15th and 18th in the standings. They haven't got a top 10 after 4 races, and this is a team who we were supposed to believe would win the title.
Yeah, I mean, that's looking like to be brutally honest, it's looking like a bit of an embarrassing statement. Santino Ferrucci was bullish, saying, yeah, we'll be fighting for top fives regularly. We could be in contention for the championship. I mean, he finished 18th in this race, and that's kind of where he's been this season. After obviously last season is 11 top tens, which was supremely impressive, and that's, I guess, looking even more impressive after their start they've had to the season. But yeah, don't come out and talk big.
And Malukas hasn't been any better, in fairness. I mean, his start to 4 has been underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, is he the lead guy in the chat? No, he isn't. Actually.
No, he's not. He's 3 positions behind Ferrucci.
3 positions. I mean, for 7 points, so little to split.
Malukas was 16th ahead of Armstrong, 17th. Ferrucci in 18th. Daly was 19th ahead of Ericsson. Kevin Simpson, who actually qualified quite well, but didn't have a very good race day, finished 21st.
Good qualifying though. That's
good qualifying from him. He's making progress. That's undeniable.
Feels consistent, not making many mistakes. Just I mean, obviously he actually got the top 10 at Long Beach, didn't he? But didn't quite manage to convert here.
Then we had Sligo Roman 22nd ahead of Callum Wilde, Devon D. Francesco, Robert Schwartzman, and rounds up by Louis Foster and Jacob Abel. We thought Louis Foster caused our first caution in about 14 years, but he got out the grass in the end. So, I mean, it's not a shame. It's not a shame because Louis is a good friend of a podcast. I don't want him to crash. But how have we gone since lap 1 of Spain? It is incredible. And I know you can self-restart the hybrid, but we haven't even seen anyone need to do that apart from the opening lap in thermal. It's cautions, man. What's happened? What has happened?
I mean,
so weird.
I think it's something that needs to be kind of asked around to drivers a little bit more. They all keep saying, "Oh, well, you can self-restart now with the hybrid," but we're not even getting in a situation where cars are having to restart.
Literally, we've had 1 instance of that maybe being needed.
Yeah, so first lap at St. Pete was the last time, which is nuts. It's not even like St. Pete was a caution-filled race. It was at the very start, the first lap. And I think the best, I can't remember who said it, but I think maybe someone said it after Long Beach, one of the podium drivers, that basically, because of the hybrid, drivers just aren't, or maybe it was, I think Rossi's mentioned this on his podcast, actually, that drivers just aren't pushing to 100% anymore. Because they just can't really with the hybrid, and obviously with the hybrid weight, we're seeing much less passing.
I think it's time for a weekly hybrid rant about how passing is significantly down. But that's also meaning less wheel-to-wheel combat, which is meaning less contact and less threat of stuff. We've not even had a hybrid fail that's led to a caution, and yet it still fails all the time. I saw his tweet the other week where it was, is the hybrid being scapegoated? And I think there is an argument that, yes, there is a lot of the series of problems being blamed on the hybrid, but it's not coincidental it's come in, it's made the racing significantly worse because you've got this added weight. The drivers don't like it. It's causing problems. It's completely changed the balance of the car. Drivers can't push. The car's now heavier, which the drivers having to put more physical work into building their own body strength. And it's just the overtaking numbers are so significantly down. And what's the only change since last year? It's the hybrid. This drivers are saying Indianapolis might be better, but that's not because it's easier to overtake. That's because people are more likely to make mistakes mid-corner and hence open up an opportunity. So it's not even it's made the racing better. It's just going to be easier to overtake because the car's now much more difficult to drive when it was an already difficult car to drive. It's just so disappointing that IndyCar arrived 10 years late to the party on the hybrid, and it's just made their racing significantly worse when that was their USP. And you've got a new car coming in 2 years' time. If you're going to do it, just chuck it in with a new car because then there's no penalty.
Yeah, this is the key thing, right? The hybrid itself may be a useful thing in the future, but you've added a heavy hybrid system to a car that was already getting too heavy. It doesn't make any sense, really. I know I get why they've had to do it because they want to keep up with modern trends, and supposedly this was what would keep Honda in the series. Honda might not stay in the series anyway, and it certainly hasn't attracted new engine manufacturers from what we've seen, because who's going to want to be a part of it when the racing's like this? So yeah, the hybrid could become something that's like, yeah, it's useful when you have a car that's new, lighter, and not 15 years old. And I think something we've spoken about so much on the 2 years of this podcast is how We love IndyCar because it has the best racing products in the world. Every driver we interview, especially, you know, our Brits that have come over from Europe, why have you come to IndyCar? Because the racing product's amazing. It's pure, it's brilliant, it's old school, it's aggressive, it's elbows out. Since the hybrid, and we're obviously still visiting tracks for the first time with the hybrid system at this point in the season, being the first complete season, we're just seeing processions. We're not seeing any wheel-to-wheel action really apart beyond the opening laps. It settles into this real processional thing, and IndyCar's become boring. And I didn't think I was ever going to say that.
I hate to say it, but this race, I mean, we obviously chat mid-race. I said to you many times, I thought Long Beach was absolutely terrible, and it was an absolute snooze fest. And this was arguably even worse than Long Beach was.
And I hate nothing more than being negative about IndyCar, because I think it is brilliant. As Will Buxton said in the interview we did with him a couple of months ago, it's this undiscovered hidden gem. And there's such a good opportunity to capitalize on, to pounce on with Fox, this all-network deal. People are going to be turning off after 5 laps when they see the racing.
We saw the Long Beach viewership, and it was bad. And the racing's not getting any better. We've had 4 races this year, and we haven't had a good race. I mean, some races were watchable. I mean, Thermal was, until we had the blackout, was watchable. But we're yet to have
watchable, though. This is the thing. The standard now is, okay, the best race of the season was watchable.
Yeah. The
worst race of the season in the past has been a race you would say, okay, it was watchable. Maybe it wasn't the best, but it was watchable. And now our best race is just watchable.
I mean,
whereas you would have the vast majority of races would be thrilling, there'd be constant action. And even your worst race would have, 200 on-track passes, which would put F1 and all of these other categories to shame. Whereas now you're looking at IndyCar and thinking, it's just a bit, it's ordinary. There's not much passing.
I hate comparing IndyCar to F1. But, you know, when Verstappen was dominating F1, it was always, come over to IndyCar, look, it's unpredictable every week, the racing's fun. And now it's the other way around. F1 actually is quite predictable. I'm not like, it's not Álex Palou's fault, obviously, but he is making it predictable, which is a mark on Palou more than anything else. But it's not like behind him the racing's particularly good either. It's impossible to overtake. And we go to all these cool tracks, and it's just the cars don't suit them.
Yeah, I don't want to be negative, because, you know, I want, part of what we are doing here is we want people to get into watching IndyCar. We want to show people how great IndyCar is. But at the moment, you can't help but be negative, because there's nothing great to show people. That seems, maybe that's a bit extreme. You know, you've still got the phenomenal personality.
But what we're used to.
The racing, the pure sporting product that is, you know, for a lot of people, the main selling point that just kind of knits everything together, all these great personalities that you have and the great culture around the series. The actual sporting product is boring. It's become boring.
Yeah, and we've obviously got its biggest test coming up. If the 500 is not interesting, what happens then? You're in a really bad state.
I mean, if it does it come to a stage where you're like, we've just got to ditch the hybrid until we get a new car? But then, how embarrassing does that look?
Yeah.
It's a lose-lose situation.
There's no winning at the minute, because I mean, have we spoken to a single driver about the hybrid so far? It's been a resounding success, and I'm so glad they've done this.
I mean, O'Ward on Friday said, he said, this is your biggest voice in the series, your poster boy, your guy. He said the car has become boring.
In a public press conference.
It has become boring. And yeah, says it all.
Says it all. I mean, we won't get too doom and gloom, because we still have the best month of the year to come. And
yeah, and I'd say again, I don't want to be negative, but at the same time, I'm not just going to come out here and say everything's amazing when it's not, because
it's a shame we always record this before we get the viewership numbers, because I'm going to be fascinated to see the viewer numbers when they come out, because
there was nothing to my knowledge that's incredible competition. Was it the Kentucky Derby?
I mean, F1 was on an hour afterwards. NASCAR might have clipped it slightly.
I know Long Beach, there was obviously the Masters.
I think NASCAR started midway through IndyCar, and F1 was just after. But Probably not.
Again, May is going to be massive. The 500 is going to be huge. If we have a great 500, that is where you can really. And I think it was always going to be the case because of the staggered starts of the season, that the 500 is where you can really start to jump on and harness some momentum, because this is your Super Bowl. This is your big race. This is what people know IndyCar for, and they should start knowing IndyCar for more than that. But the 500 can be the launch pad to allow that to be the case. So May is massive. I think these first few races were always maybe going to be a little bit testing because of just the staggered nature. But I mean, we have 4 weekends off until the season ends now. It's pretty much every week on track.
Good for this podcast. What I was also going to say is Fox's broadcast continually gets better and better each week. They have finally implemented the qualifying live lap times, which is fantastic because we've been crying out for that. And we're seeing a lot more like data. Like there was like one which was Palou on the soft versus Palou on the hard graphic, which is a bit pointless, but it's an excellent graphic. So
yeah, I agree. They're still adding stuff every week, and that's what they've kind of. That was what was promised from the outset, and everything they are adding is making it better, which is great. The only rant I will have, and I'll keep it short, but the pre-show that they do, warm-up, they essentially use for their pre-race show, which I think is a phenomenal concept. IndyCar Live had a nightmare, which is essentially the international feed, and it had a few disasters over the weekend. I know Indy Next qualifying cut off early. Same happened in warm-up, but warm-up was, I think we had 3 minutes of the coverage actually working well before it cut off with 3 minutes to go. And the kind of 20-25 minutes before that, it was either it was a bit comical. I can't lie. I mean, initially you had a still picture of the track, and you could hear the Fox guys talking, which was okay, right, cool-ish. There weren't any cars on track at this point. Cars get on track, pictures fix themselves, you lose all Fox audio. The only audio we had was for the onboards when Fox went to a break. Then the Fox audio comes back, brilliant. It's stuck in a loop of Will Buxton walking 2 yards. That is the only picture we got. The pictures fix again, the Fox audio goes again. Everything's great and fine. It's fixed for 3 minutes and then it cuts off before the end. So that was not ideal. Just want those glitches to kind of be eradicated, let's say.
Speaking of Indy Next, if you want to avoid Palou domination, it's not going to get any better for you, because Dennis Hauger, obviously new friend of the podcast we spoke to last week, is arguably more dominant than Palou is at the minute. I think he might win every race. I'm not going to.
I mean, he led every session, and it didn't feel in doubt. And the race was. I mean, he didn't use any push to pass. I think he used 4 seconds of push to pass until the closing lap. Still had about a 5-6 second lead, and ended up winning by 11 seconds. Yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, shouts out as well to Evagoras Papasavas, who making the jump up from USF 2000, making his Indy Next debut, finished second, qualified third, finished second. So that was a great drive from someone who was 17 years old.
Viewers, you've seen the new hat is out, so I got this on his birthday present. So continuing to rep New York, this basketball rivalry is going. We might just silently continue this rivalry. Not ever. It must have to be like an elephant in the room, would be like quietly like. It's featured, but we never talk about it. It might be like a running joke on this podcast. It
would help if I knew anything about the sport and didn't just jump on the bandwagon because
Tyrese Halliburton drove the Indy 500 pace car about 3 years ago.
I recognise that name, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's a good start. Connor Daly was in the All-Star game. I still find that absolutely hilarious. Right, I think it's time to give some awards out, probably now. We'll start with our top 3 drivers of the weekend. I am going to go for Lundgaard in third, VeeKay in second, Palou in first, and I imagine you'll probably do the same thing. You're trying to find a way not to do the same thing.
I'm trying to find a way to put VeeKay first, but I think the fact that Álex Palou himself said this is the best weekend he's ever had in the history of his racing life, there's no way he can't go top. So yes, Palou definitely top, VeeKay second, Lundgaard third.
We'll go on to our unsung hero this weekend. You can't say VeeKay for this one because I feel like his praises.
Yeah, it's not unsung this weekend.
It's, you know, you've made it when you're so good. Your weekend has been so good, you cannot be considered unsung. That's when you have made it, really.
There's nobody that really stands out this weekend, to be honest.
For me, I'll go Rossi just because it was quite a decent finish, actually.
I'll go for Siegel. Probably
I think
his best weekend yet.
those are the two who I think
Qualifying sixth ahead of his teammates. Well done. Yeah, good weekend.
Any funny moments? I thought Palou's press conference was quite funny, saying it's a great story for all of us to write about his dominance. But
yeah, he said it's BS that people think it's boring or something. I think he said. I don't know, it's not necessarily a hilarious, haha, funny moment, but I liked the fact that, I mean, Palou was sporting the Honda Racing Corporation livery, which essentially made his car the number 10 Honda for the weekend, which
nice looking livery. And
nice
some
car.
listeners of the podcast will know I am strict when it comes to liking livery. So actually, I thought it was quite nice. So.
We'll probably have to do, maybe this is something to return to in off season, and we can rank all of the liveries that we've had throughout the season. Because we did a few while we were struggling kind of in the early season or late preseason phase, but actually just got swamped, and we're not going to have a chance now. But maybe end of the season.
Good shout.
I'll note that on the whiteboard.
Right, we will move on to our predictions. As we said, we've both predicted our our 13th. So Fast 6, once again, we had gone for basically exactly the same thing. We'd gone for Palou, Lundgaard, McLaughlin, Rosenqvist, Armstrong, and you'd gone for Power. I'd gone for Award. McLaughlin made it and Palou made it. And for your benefit, Power also made it. So you got this week 3-2.
Get in the 1 point, the weekly 1 point swing / no point swing when neither of them make it.
Yes, and we'll move on to our podium predictor tournament. I went for McLaughlin, Palou, and Rosenqvist, which actually isn't too bad of a shout because I would have got 2 points for Palou and 1 point for McLaughlin. That's only 3 points, which isn't that good in fairness. You had a banger. You went for Palou, Power, McLaughlin, so you get 6 points right there. So that's pretty good.
Did I say Palou would win?
Yeah. Pretty good weekend.
I don't remember doing that. That's get in.
Fans went for McLaughlin, Palou, and Award, so that's pretty similar to me. So that's again another 3. Morgan went for Palou, Herta, VeeKay. VeeKay was a shout. Ivan went for McLaughlin, Lundgaard, and Palou, so that's 2 points despite getting 2 correct, which is the way this tournament works. It's quite harsh. Jackson went for Lundgaard, Rosenqvist, and Award, so that's 2. Bit of a bold shout there, but only 2, unfortunately. We'll move on to our friend James Scott. James went for Ericsson, McLaughlin, and Dixon, so that's only 2 points there for him. So that's not ideal. And
prediction of the century that Ericsson would win that race. I think that was after he topped practice, and then everything just went so downhill.
And Tom Gamer went for Palou, McLaughlin, Power, so that's a solid 5 for Tom there. So good scoring for you and Tom. We say this every week. We will update the standings at some point, just not this week. So
I've got no idea where we are. Nobody knows. I don't even know.
Neither do I. I'm still a defending champion. And if we never count it up, I will remain the defending champions. Maybe that's the strategy I need to go for. I'm just
how's Fast 6 going? Am I like 2 points clear?
Oh goodness knows. For more Indy GP, we'll have this information for you, listeners. That hasn't gone as well as we hoped. But anyway, it is Indy Road Course next week, so we need to do our own Fast 6 now. There's a bit of pressure this week, Archie. We have to avoid this horrendous habit we've got of predicting basically the same. So
I forgot we were doing this now. So let's bring it on.
Listeners will come back to you, and let's hope with every ounce of our being that we go for somewhat different predictions this week. So I'll come back to you in a minute. Fingers crossed. Oh dear, I'm worried. So we'll start off with.
How many caps do you have?
No, I don't have out of this one. This is the last one. I don't really like this one as much as the other 2, but this is the last one. I thought it'd be funny if I ripped out the 3rd one after you tried to insult me at the start of this episode by putting that hat on. So no, it doesn't look good on me, the flat one, so I might have to get rid of it actually. So we'll eat that away. We'll put on the blue one. The blue one's back for the rest of the episode. As I said, the day of recording, we've got a big game tonight, so we'll see how that fares. Last year was the Knicks versus the Pacers about this time, which got feisty. We lost, so we'll move on. We'll move on swiftly. Álex Palou, I guess, is a lock for you.
Yep, Palou is a lock
for me. Cool. Will Power is cracked at qualifying here, so I went for Will Power.
I actually haven't gone for Will Power.
Oh, okay, fine. The other 4 will be the same, though, so no need to worry.
Yeah, I know. Right? Do you want me to go now?
This one off.
McLaughlin.
No, I haven't gone for McLaughlin. So this bodes
Okay.
well. This is the most difference we've had since St. Petersburg already.
Maybe they are the two different ones, though.
I went for Newgarden on the other side of the Penske garage.
I didn't go for Newgarden.
Okay, fine. So
let me throw out Christian Lundgaard.
yeah, no, I think Lundgaard's now a bit of a lock on these sort of things. So I've got Lundgaard as well.
Let me throw out Pato O'Ward.
Yeah, I've gone Pato O'Ward as well.
Let me throw out Colton Herta.
No, this is Rahul's greatest track in existence. So I've gone for Graham Rahul because every time they turn up here, they seem to be absolutely cracked. They're terrible at all other 16 races of the year, but Indianapolis Road Course, they seem to be incredibly good. I think it's the only ever time I'm going to predict Graham Rahul for the fastest predicted tournament, to be honest. But I've got Palou, Lundgaard, Power, O'Ward, Newgarden, and Rahul.
I've got Palou, McLaughlin, Lundgaard, Herta, O'Ward, and Rosenqvist.
It's been quite sensible this week, then. Only going for 3 the same. What's happened to us?
Amazing.
Good. We have some actual competition for once, rather than saying, "Oh, which driver finishes slightly better this week?"
Brilliant.
I mean, we've obviously gone on quite too much, but I mean, tiny little bit of a preview. This is Álex Palou's track through and through, which doesn't bode particularly well for us. So, I mean, he's a double defending race winner. I mean, that's all we basically need to know. Power's been very strong here. Power's got 5 wins here. So,
I mean, Lundgaard's been excellent at this track. And I know Rahul have been good, but could be looking at another kind of who gets the final spot on the podium if we're to judge by the form book.
I mean, Power's been very good form recently, and he's always gone well here. So, I mean, we'll also get the podium prediction this week, but I will probably be predicting those 3. So, yeah, quite. I'll be honest. This is probably my least favorite weekend of the year. So,
we probably ought to touch on the change they've made. Actually, that drivers will have to run 2 sets of alternates and 2 sets of primaries in the race as a mandate, which doesn't really change the strategy that much. It would usually be a 3-stop. It
basically just stops it being an entirely red race or an entirely black race, which has been the case in every single race this year.
So, yeah, we'll see. But it might not add an extra stop or anything. That's the only thing. We'll see. We'll see. That it's only for that race so far.
Yeah. I want to say this at the start, actually. So maybe a last final thought is Cadillac F1 have launched their team this weekend. And obviously a lot of the chat's been around Colton Herta. But if I'm Dan Tauris, I think Álex Palou, you've got to put at the top of your list
it's
for an F1 drive, because sure, Colton is your golden boy, and Colton is the person who's been linked to F1 for years. But if you want to create a competitive F1 outfit and take a risk on a rookie, why wouldn't you go for Álex Palou? Because you were never going to get a driver in IndyCar at the peak of their powers to this extent, who I think would be so well suited for F1. He did that one practice session with McLaren in Formula One, and he impressed there. And you give him a course of season, it's a project. So if it doesn't go well, fine, it's still a project. But why would you go for Colton Herta when Álex Palou, we know he's interested in F1? That's why he started this whole contract saga. Sure, he'd be a loss for IndyCar, but I mean, with the form he's in the minute, and you're looking at signing up drivers, sure, you get Sergio Perez or Valtteri Bottas, but they'd be excellent alongside Álex Palou, who's got loads of experience and is incredibly mature. I mean, whenever have we seen a driver get mad at Álex Palou for an accident? Like, never. Like, he'd be so good in that seat, and I'd really want to see him in that seat to prove what IndyCar drivers can do at a global motorsport stage. So I know Dan Tauris isn't listening to this podcast, but I think it's a thought that I just wanted to share because it's been in my mind this week, and I think it's got to happen for me.
Yeah, no notes really. I mean, Graham Loudon, the team principal, was interviewed on Sky Sports F1 during the practice session for the Miami Grand Prix, and he said that he's got 2 drivers in mind, but they're not necessarily looking solely at we need an American driver. And I guess the appeal with Herta is, I mean, Herta's still, we know how good Colton Herta is, and if this is properly going to be America's team, then maybe you do want an American driver, and he is probably as good an American option as you have out there. But ultimately, this team is going to want to be competitive Formula One, and we know just racing in general is fierce. And if you want to pick a driver off merit, there is not a driver that is not in Formula One at the moment that is anywhere near as good as Álex Palou, I don't think. And
Kyle Larson fans, you might have upset, but
that you feel would succeed in F1. I don't see Kyle Larson jumping in F1 car succeeding.
And same as Max Verstappen jumping into a cup car.
Exactly.
I don't think he would
Exactly.
succeed, so.
Exactly. Within kind of logical reason. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, this guy's at the peak of his powers and getting better, which is just unbelievable. And
which is worrying for the opposition, especially as we head to the IMS road course next week, which is Palou's absolute bread and butter when it comes to victory. Could he make it 4 out of 5? As I said earlier, not all hope is lost if we look at 2012, where Will Power won the first 3 of 4 races. But we reflect on Barber with another dominant Álex Palou performance, and he sets a benchmark once again and leads the 60-point lead in championship standings. And we'll leave it at that for this week. We obviously go straight to the road course next Saturday before we fly straight to the 500 for the best month of the year. The month of May is almost upon us. Well, it is upon us, but the festivities at Indianapolis start on Friday. But for this time, thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.